Yes, I am going to disrespect the multiverse by putting a portal to Gotham City into the Sanctum Sanctorum. No, I do not care. No, Doctor Strange doesn't care. No, Batman and Dr. Quinzel do not care. This is my multiverse, and Mom said it's my turn to choose the rules. You may be thinking to yourself, Micah, didn't you already address what you think about the Sanctum? And yes, I did include a brief review of the set at the beginning of my video dealing with the two Guardians of the Galaxy spaceships, but I figured if I'm going to use it as a referee for my future LEGO reviews, I should have at least one video where I properly address what I think about it. By doing a full-length video about it, I can put a link to this video in future reviews so that everything has a nice, consistent baseline that I can compare to. A couple of adjustments to my review format since that first review video. I'm changing the scale from 1 to 5 to 0 to 10. This will allow me to have a little bit more depth and distinction in my reviews without having to resort to decimal places, at least as quickly. This means that instead of 3 being the middle, 5 is the middle, and 0 and 10 are obviously the extremes instead of 1 and 5. For sake of completeness, on this new scale, the Guardians ship gets an overall score of 8 out of 10, and the new Guardians ship gets a score of 5.3 out of 10. Furthermore, minifigures weren't a primary motivating force in me getting either of those sets initially, so I kind of glossed over them in my review, but I think for purposes of future reviews, I do want to include a category explicitly discussing minifigures, so I will be adding that into this video as well. Groundwork established, let's get down to brass tacks, which is an expression I have never understood. First category to address, minifigures. As far as I'm concerned, there are 3 categories of minifigure that we need to address: re-releases, redesigns, and originals. The Sanctum Sanctorum only includes one re-released minifigure, which is really good in my opinion. However, it is a touch odd that the re-released minifigure in question is the titular Doctor Strange. It would have been really nice to get an original character like Defender Strange in this fig's slot. However, I don't mind too terribly much because this is potentially the best minifigure for Doctor Strange that we have ever gotten. Something that will be a touch of a recurring theme for me in this set and most future sets is that I don't terribly mind the first time that a figure is a duplicate, because I appreciate having spares that I can position in my LEGO city, separate from the collection copy that I keep nice in storage. So I'm actually pretty grateful that this really good figure for Steven is the one that we get a duplicate of. However, even outside of that perspective, I don't terribly mind this one, because if you're going to have to duplicate a figure, at least duplicate one that is quality, and I think that this meets that expectation. Next, we have to cover the redesigned minifigures in the set, which are Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Ebony Maw. And when I say that these are redesigned figures, I mean that these are new and original minifigures, but they're based on looks that have already received a minifigure adaptation previously. The Spider-Man figure in this set is a redesign of one that originally came in set 76083, Beware the Vulture, for Spider-Man Homecoming, although that fig itself is also a redesign of one that originally came in 76067, Tanker Truck Takedown for Captain America Civil War, and both Iron Man and Ebony Maw are redesigns of ones that originally came in set 76108, Sanctum Sanctorum Showdown from Infinity War. These new figures are pretty decent, if I'm being completely honest, but the differences between the new and original copies of Spider-Man and Iron Man are minute at best, and while I do definitely approve of making Ebony Maw less Squidward colored, it's criminal that he loses his leg printing, especially considering that the new Sanctum Sanctorum is a full $150 more expensive than the Sanctum Sanctorum Showdown. Something that I expect will be a bit of a theme with these redesigned minifigures is that I don't hate the inclusion, and there are sometimes very good changes made, but I do think that the set would be better if they were substituted for more original inclusions. In this case, doubly so, because these aren't Doctor Strange figures, these are Avengers figures. I do appreciate the Avengers Infinity War callbacks, but it says something about this that even as an Iron Man fan, I feel like this figure is gratuitous. There are a plurality of Doctor Strange characters who either have never gotten a minifigure or have only gotten a single minifigure that it would have been nice to see more done with. Characters like the Ancient One would have been nice to receive in the set for completionism's sake, if nothing else, and Christine Palmer, Caecilius, Dormammu, and if we're really dreaming, members of the Illuminati, have never gotten minifigures at all. Any of those characters would have contributed more to the set's value than these redesigned minifigures do. In particular, because Caecilius is never going to return for another Marvel property, and it's unlikely that we ever see another set that's based on the Doctor Strange franchise as a whole, it's probably pretty safe to assume that we're never going to receive a Caecilius minifigure, and this would have been the perfect set to include him in. I recognize that he's not exactly a popular character, but as somebody who really enjoyed him and enjoyed the scene with him and Doctor Strange in the Sanctum Sanctorum's entryway, I'm disappointed not to see him. These 3 redesigned figures aren't bad, and I can honestly say that I'm glad that I have them, but it's hard to ignore that opportunity cost that is inherent to their inclusion in the set. Finally, the set does come with 5 completely original characters: Scarlet Witch, Wong, Baron Mordo, Sinister Strange, and Dead Strange. Zombie Strange. Possessed Strange? I don't know, I never even saw the movie. All of these are good minifigures, although right off the bat, only 2 have leg printing and none of them have arm printing, which is a bit disappointing. I think it's borderline comedic how good Sinister Strange's third eye looks, considering how questionable it looked on the big screen, and the Multiverse Baron Mordo minifigure is all but perfect. The Scarlet Witch minifigure is a bit underwhelming in comparison to her collectible minifigure series counterpart, which is yet another thing that I suspect will become a recurring theme in these reviews. And unfortunately, the weakest link of the bunch is Wong, the only minifigure based on the character to ever lack leg printing, in addition to being the only minifigure that was original to this set that is now available in other places. I'm less inclined to see these figs as disposable than I am the redesigned minifigures. However, I would have really appreciated seeing more attention and care given to the detail on the minifigs, especially considering how particularly intricate a lot of these characters' costumes are on the big screen. At the end of the day, I rate these a solid 5 out of 10. They're not bad, and there's not really anything to complain about at any real length here, but also they're nothing special to write home about, to say nothing of the way that they are haunted by the specter of missed opportunities. Moving right along, we have to talk about the build experience, which is pretty decent. The obvious standout moment is the front corner of the building, all of which is built at an angle. This angle looks fantastic and creates a very distinct aesthetic to many of the other modular buildings that I've seen, especially those that I happen to have in my own city. The detail shines throughout the build because there are different and distinct techniques used on each floor to achieve this shaping. The design for the shape on the rooftop is a little bit phoned in, but it's difficult to be upset about when the designs for the first and second floors flow so perfectly into each other. Unfortunately, a lot of the rest of the build is just stacking bricks vertically. The grand staircase in particular is a striking example of this, where the final result looks good, but it's just stacked 2x4 bricks with no interesting building techniques to speak of. The vertical monotony of building the set is broken up by a number of micro-scale details, some of which are incorporated into the building's actual structure in a really interesting way, and the play features that are included are spectacularly integrated such that they don't detract from the model's aesthetic and come together really satisfyingly. Unfortunately, a lot of these moments tend to feel more like, huh, that's kind of cool, instead of, oh my gosh, this is stinking awesome, which lacks the show-stopping oomph that I tend to look for when I'm looking at cool building techniques. The interior is populated with a number of very fun references. I'm particularly fond of Thor's hammer waiting to be called through multiple walls in the upper floor, but unfortunately these details end up looking a little bit sparse in comparison to the open spaces that make up most of the Sanctum's interior. Because each floor is comprised of more or less a single room, there's a ton of open space, in particular on the open third floor where the staircase isn't taking up the overwhelming majority of the room, but there's not enough detail to actually fill out the space in a way that feels like it effectively represents the claustrophobic and borderline hoarding interior of the Sanctum Sanctorum as seen on the big screen. The empty space on the third floor actually bothers me so much that I have started looking for ways to fill it in that will be interesting and fit the vibe appropriately. In fact, when I finished building set 2133 331 Sonic the Hedgehog Green Hill Zone, which is an incredibly catchy name that just rolls right off the tongue, I realized that I had an extra copy of each of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, so I created a little dresser with the emeralds across the top that I could use to fill in this empty space on the top floor. It's a simple detail, but it fills out the space nicely and makes this blank gray wall look significantly more interesting. Plus, I just really love the idea of Thanos accidentally collecting the Chaos Emeralds instead of the Infinity Stones, and then having a panic attack when he has 7 stones and only 6 spaces on his gauntlet. Ultimately, I rate the build experience a 5 out of 10. There's nothing bad here, and it definitely has its moments, but it does feel like they could have achieved something significantly cooler if they'd pushed the budget and the design just a little bit further. I definitely would have paid extra for something with some more details put into the interior. Once I had the set put together though, the play value actually exceeded my expectations. The portal door on the 2nd floor with varying destinations is actually a really cool party trick. When I give people the tour of my LEGO city, it's one of people's favorite things every single time. The star of the play feature show, however, is very clearly the swappable wall panels featuring portals. Messing around with the layout of these as is already a good deal of fun, and I appreciate the way that it's set up such that there are different scenes that naturally create themselves when you put them in different locations. I especially appreciate the way that when you put Gargantos in the 2nd story slot, it fills out the room and kind of makes up for some of the lacking detail. However, even better is the way that the empty portal actively inspires you to do something with it. Mine currently features a micro-scale Gotham as a backdrop for Batman stepping into the Sanctum Sanctorum. Each of these panels comes together in what I would describe as a very satisfying way, and they even click into place really nicely when you pop them in or out. An even more subtle detail that I really appreciate and haven't seen discussed anywhere are the open studs that are built into the building's exterior. I love the way that these work with the transparent elements that are used for posing minifigures in action stances. I think that this is a great way to make a superhero building really feel like it's part of a superhero setting. Different spaces lend themselves to different collections of minifigures in different orientations, and I like the way that I can create different fights around the building. Or Zombie Hunter Spidey webbing one of his zombie nemesis to the wall. Unfortunately, the colossal catch here is that a lot of this play value is kind of secondary. The empty portal is cool, but it gets better once you add your own creativity to it. Meanwhile, the posing opportunities are a fantastic play feature, but limited by the included minifigures, and really only open up once you add your own collection. Neither of these things are intrinsically bad, they each contribute to the display in their own way, but to get effective play value out of them, you have to add something into the set that wasn't there before. If the set's play value was more all-in-one, I would be inclined to rate it higher, but as it is, I'm willing to give it a 5 out of 10. Once you're done playing and you want to display it though, I think that this is a really interesting case. Not only is this building incredibly detailed, but it's surprisingly accurate considering the scale and available pieces. But unfortunately, it's incredibly accurate to a building that is designed to be understated. The Sanctum Sanctorum's design is intentionally unassuming and able to blend into the background in comparison to more ostentatious superhero strongholds like the Avengers Tower. Because the Sanctum emulates this design so effectively, it can end up blending into the background on your shelf when it's next to other modular buildings. Electro is dead set on being a wiggly boy today. Side-by-side display with other modular buildings gets especially awkward when you have the advertisement for the Captain America exhibit up on the roof. The alleyway behind the Sanctum at least means that it doesn't cause collision issues, but it still gets hidden in a way that looks really awkward and unintentional if you combine it with a weird building at that side. My best option for having this look natural and intentional is the Boutique Hotel, and it does look pretty good, but it's a little bit unfortunate having to have 2 corner modules back to back. Unfortunately, the building clearly wasn't intended for solo display either. The side and rear walls, as seen from the front of the building, are unfinished and can look awkward if they enter your line of sight. The back wall is a little bit better than the side wall because it is intended to be at least a little bit visible from the alleyway, but it still looks awkward and not quite complete. The awkwardness is slightly accentuated by the portal inserts that we talked about in the play display features section. If you want to avoid having a massive hole in the wall of the second floor, you're forced into having these walls in a specific layout when you're displaying the set by itself and can't butt that hole up against the wall of a different building. Namely, you're forced to have the open portal on the first floor with the opening into the room with the Darkhold, the closed portal featuring Gargantos opening into the second floor, and the advertisement for the Captain America exhibit on the third floor. Anything else results in a wide open look into the interior. Unfortunately, what this means is that this set doesn't actually excel as either part of a layout or a standalone display. The set isn't worthless because once people recognize it, they do get excited by it, but it's hard not to feel underwhelmed compared to a set of significant scale like the Daily Bugle, and considering that those are both of the modular sets that are available from the Marvel theme at this point, you're likely to have those two sets side by side, or at least close to each other. I will say that one advantage of this lacking sense of scale is that it does flow more seamlessly with traditional modular buildings, making it a little bit more tasteful and contextually appropriate for injecting superhero flair into a traditional LEGO city, but unfortunately, subtlety does not a good centerpiece make. This set's value isn't bad for display, but I would consider it less than many other sets in my collection, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 here as well. If you've been keeping score at home, the Daily Bugle scores 5 out of 10 across the board for the most thoroughly earned 5 out of 10 average score I can think of. This score being the very reason that I've chosen it to be the referee for every other review that I do. I don't think there's a situation where this set is a bad set, and I can honestly and earnestly recommend it. However, for an experienced collector, this set is more of a relaxing walk in the park than an effort-intensive and focus-demanding build. But the flip side of that is that this is a very approachable set for almost anyone. I could see this set being the ideal introduction to the hobby for a lot of people. The set is good, but it's not overwhelming on any count. The lack of excessively complex building techniques make it unlikely to overwhelm or confuse new builders, while the interesting techniques that are present are enough to inspire people that LEGO could do more than they might have otherwise expected. Meanwhile, even LEGO diehards stand to learn something from those self-same techniques. The subject matter and effective minifigure scale also make it something that will likely appeal to a wider audience, which is probably one of the set's biggest strengths. I would describe this set as completely worth the money. It's a good time, and there's something appealing here for almost anybody, whether it's the chance to inject a new bit of flavor into your LEGO city, or an expression of your Marvel fandom, or something else entirely. Any set with an average rating lower than this set is probably pushing it on whether or not it's actually worth it. Anything that exceeds this average rating is definitely worth it, and anything that matches is, well, solid. Worth the money. A good time. That about wraps it up. As I covered in the short video I released a little bit ago, we've just hit 100 subscribers, so watch out for me to announce when we're going to do the 100 subscriber special stream where I build the Emerald Knight. That ought to be a good time, and will probably include some AMA elements. Furthermore, be sure to let me know what you'd like to see as the 250 subscriber special in the comments below. If you're not subscribed and you like the format of this review, I'm going to continue reviewing LEGO sets in this style. Be sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate the support. As always, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.